Hey everyone, Erin Zen Warrior here. Still fuzzy wuzzy, but I have myself a phone organized. When that turns up, this one will go in and all the videos will resume to normal, ideal reality. Super cool topic today. I've been sitting on this one for a while because I needed time, essentially, to get to it. And I think I was also hoping for like my camera to dry out. And so I sat it on the side for a while on the sidelines. And now I'm just like, today I did something really cool. I went to the GP because I want to be assessed for autism, and that's the process you have to go through. And I had an experience recently. People are like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no. Autism from a human design perspective is quite different to autism from a world perspective, in my opinion, from what I've observed. And the spectrum and all that sort of stuff, through human design, what we understand is that the evolution of the human being, let me just do the do not disturb, the evolution of the human being is actually coming through the emotional center, and that emotional evolution, that mutation is mainly coming through the man, but it's coming through all of us, but it's, our last strong evolution was in the larynx, and that very much came through the women. And so as we evolve, as the layers upon layers come, they sort of start in the man and then spread through everyone else. And then also there's some interesting questions there. You know, you have masculine channels and feminine channels, and we are all overlaying the masculine and the feminine. But for me, recently, and it's not like I haven't questioned it before, how much on the spectrum am I? And sometimes I'll bump into someone who's an expert in their field, who's also very spectrum-y, and they'll go, you know, my osteopath did this to me recently. He went, oh yeah, and how on the spectrum are you? You know, like this. And I kind of chuckled because I was like, oh yeah, you know, like there's part of me that has just accepted it without even really going, well, actually, what is the answer to that question beyond some weird acknowledgement of the fact that there are lots of things that resonate with me according to what spectrum is or autism is in the world we live in. And so recently, a friend of mine helped me out with something awesomely helpful, fucking super grateful for it, drives into my driveway. I don't really stop to think. I'm an emotional quad right projector with the line of synthesis, the most sensitive person in the room, as my emotional wave. It's tribal. It wants to serve everyone's needs. It can feel everyone in the room. Parties kind of suck for us in some ways because that hypersensitivity is just a lot with a lot of people around. And he starts getting out of his car and he puts his bag on his back, and I was like, oh, we're doing some work today, because we do a bit of work together sometimes. And he goes, oh yeah, we can, and he starts coming inside, and my whole system just derails itself. It's like, can I do calls today? Can we do that? Like, and then I put my hand on the door handle and I'm like, I wasn't expecting anyone in my house today. It's not prepared for people to come in. Like, I don't like my mess being out. And of course, because I have people in my house for work and stuff like that all the time, there's only a few days where I actually get to spread out mess and sort through it and deal with things. And, like, there's a way you leave your house, especially when you live on your own, that when you're coming back to it alone, you don't account for others. And I put my hand on the door handle and my whole system went, fuck, I'm really not ready for someone to come into my space. And so I open the door. This is my good friend. Like, it's only him, like, not a big deal. Open the door, and as he comes in, all I can feel is, when can I get him out? And he's used to being in my place. He just sort of assumes, goes to the bathroom. I'm like, no, no. Just everything was no. In the end, I asked him to leave, and he was fine with that. Probably he was there for about 15 minutes. It derailed my whole system for the rest of the day. It was about 2:00 in the afternoon. I didn't get anything done I wanted to get done. I had forgotten when I entered the house that I actually still needed a shower from training that day, and didn't remember till about 15 minutes after he left, when my system started to drop into its own space and go, fuck, I need a shower. Like, this was just not the appropriate time for him to come in. And in the evening, I kind of said to him, fuck, we can't do that again. That not, hey, I have to change because I'm a weirdo, but hey, we can't do that again. That just does not work for me. Things have to be scheduled, understood. I need to know what's happening in advance. Something people have said to me before is, oh, you should use a booking system and let people schedule themselves. I'm never, ever going to do that unless that scheduling is super fucking tight that they're allowed into. Like, I need to have it in my control. Anyway, after this event happened, I really sat there and I went, through the human design system, how many things within my chart could be considered spectrum? Keeping in mind, first of all, I'm an emotional projector in the 1949, and according to human design, autism is actually coming through the emotional center, and it's because of the mutation that's happening through this emotional center that we are starting to see things like prostate cancer and autism. What we're actually seeing is people not dealing with the mutation very well. And the 1949 synthesis hypersensitivity, the most sensitive person in the room. Now, to me, as I was a kid growing up, I always understood, to me, that autism was not a lack of sensitivity, but a hypersensitivity that resulted in people shutting down their physicality to some extent because they couldn't cope. Like, that was just clear to me from very young. And I'm like, what you're seeing is people in fight or flight that are oversensitive, that are being bombarded by the world around them. And so they're going, no, and go away, right? Get away from it. And they're standing in the middle of the room screaming, trying to block it all out. That's not lack of sensitivity. That's fight or flight as the result of hypersensitivity. And so people are like, oh, well, you'll miss social cues and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. There are definitely things that I've missed. One of the things I'm really good at missing is when people are interested in me, like sexually. And it's something, I don't miss it always. Sometimes it's so blatantly obvious you'd have to be blind, deaf, and dumb to miss it. But there's a lot of times that that's caused me problems where I'm not sure, or I'm guessing, or I've completely missed it and then gone, oh, and I mean, I ended up in mediation with a client because I missed stuff, right? Like, that's serious. That's a serious level of problem. But it's actually because you're coping with what you can cope with at the time. You can't always take everything in. And also, to me, I kind of wander around in the world almost like with a childlike quality, not even considering sexual attraction that often, you know. And to be honest, I'm not sexually attracted to that many people. I find most people just to be people, you know, like whatever. So anyway, synthesis. My nephew has synthesis. He's very much on the spectrum. So I see it showing up there for him. My stepfather also has the same channel, and there is something about him that's a little bit spectrumy, but there's other things in his chart that could indicate that too. So synthesis, which also breaks apart in this mutation, could definitely give us an indication that someone might be so sensitive, especially if they were male, since it's coming through the men, that we might take a little bit of a second look. Is this person starting to show signs of spectrum? And how could we help determine that by asking them the right questions? And this was the interesting thing for me today as I sat there telling this GP stuff, and I got to witness the sound, like the sound of my voice telling the story and seeing it bounce off someone else. I was laughing. I was actually laughing at myself going, I've never really listened to myself tell my own story of my life and realize how much of it sounds like spectrum disorder. I wouldn't call it a disorder. I would call it a sensitivity evolution through human design. Anyway, let's move on to the rest of my design. I'm a projector. So projectors are naturally sensitive and very, very aware of other people. I love to work with people, spend all my time designing systems around people, but have spent my whole life trying to understand people, of course. I never understood why kids were so cruel and rejected me. I never understood why a lot of things. And so I've spent my whole life pulling apart different systems, relational styles, personality type, A type and B type personality disorders and things like that, trauma, like understanding trauma and how trauma relates to people, human design, body mechanics, food, chronic disease, fight or flight, and how that affects people. So this is my area of specialty, is understanding the other, which is a projector, but also relates to all projectors are incredibly sensitive. All projectors can become incredibly overwhelmed. Then have a closer look in the chart. So just being a projector in and of itself could give you qualities of what might appear to be spectrumy. We move on. I'm a first line, and I have 5 first lines in my chart. Everybody who is a first line, and I'm a first line in personality, not in physicality, but everybody who is a first line, particularly I would say the 5 ones out there, because it's in their body, that first line, we all feel people, literally the energy of the other goes down. And Ra would talk about this because he was a 5-1, right? He could feel the person through the floor. Well, if you have first lines in your chart anywhere, you are going to be receiving energetics through the ground. And Ra famously had 10, or infamously had 10 first lines in his chart, which made him very, very sensitive to people. And according to my teacher who studied with Ra, had a real tendency to smoke a lot of weed before he taught a class because of his sensitivity of others and to others. And it was also because he had 10 first lines that he had an incredible ability to take in a lot of information. And of course, I'm a projector. I can take in a lot of information, a lot of depth, but also I'm a 1-3. So again, we have that deep investigative, like specialist quality, obsession kind of thing there, right? And I can be very obsessive, very deep divey. That's a first line. Everybody say hello to Rufus. Hi, buddy. Yes, we're stuck in the car for a moment. And then, okay, and I'm just going through my chart right now. Let's move on to the fact that I'm quad right. Well, being quad right is a mutation towards the next being. And the next beings are meant to be incredibly autistic in their first iteration. And that's because they're going to be coming into a world that's incredibly toxic. Now, there's a lot of discussion out there about autism potentially being caused by vaccines and a lot of the childhood vaccines. And if you do any research on autism, you're going to find that people will agree with you to some extent. But what they will also say is actually the world is incredibly toxic. And what I would say from a human design understanding is that we are living in a 7-centered constructed world as 9-centered intransitus human beings. And so that means that 7-centered house structure, building structure, road structure, school structure, everything structure is actually incredibly fucking toxic to all of us. And so we are all being bombarded by something that's slightly not self, as we would say in human design, slightly not quite right. And it's messing with all of us. Now, if you are a very sensitive being for whatever reason in your chart, maybe you have the 1949, maybe you have a lot of first lines, maybe you have other stuff going on that makes you sensitive within your chart, then, and there are many things within human design I could point to and go, well, that could actually indicate a potential for autism. I would definitely look at all the circuitry that's related to the mutation, right? That all these channels that are actually going to pull apart that are attached to that mutation and that emotional center, you may find that people with those channels are actually experiencing even potentially an increasing amount of sensitivity and spectrum quality, right? Like I would call it evolutionary quality as opposed to calling it spectrum disorder. Anyway, being quad right is literally, we are a mutation to the next. We are stepping into the next. And we are not the same. We are something completely different. And I have a friend who's a quad right, 4-6, self-projected projector. And he and I talk online to each other. He's in the States and he stims in front of me. And I chuckle about it because I'm literally watching that tuning. He's self-tuning, self-soothing, dealing with the world as a quad right, self-projected projector, Is he autistic? You could call it that. Maybe, yeah. He's a highly sensitive being who's self-soothing. I have self-soothing mechanisms all the time. But I find the world nuts. I look at it and I'm like, let it all be, like this is fucked up. So, and a quad right being is for the future. We see the future. We see what's happening. Any quad right I talk to, we can all kind of talk without, it's like we're all having the same conversation and we almost don't have to have the whole conversation as a result of that. And we all kind of get it. The being of the future, the being of rightness, and rightness starts next year. Yay. Yay for us quad rights. But rightness is passive, receptive, absorbing, peripheral, non-focused, non-strategic. So what happens? Oh, and it's a data bank. It can take in an incredible amount of information. And you know how quad rights often self-soothe? And I said this to a quad right I just met recently. I said, do you kind of use data and information like your area of specialty that you love to take in, which varies every day as a quad right? It's like, yes, you pick stuff around a certain area, but it can be a massive spectrum of information. I said, do you use it to soothe your brain, to calm your system down, to calm your nervous system? And she was like, fuck, I've never thought about it like that, but I absolutely do. It soothes me to take in a podcast. And of course, a podcast is better than a book because it's non-focused. We can literally be peripheral as we listen. So she was like, oh my God, I never thought about that. And we can take in books and stuff, but I have to be more, I take in a book while I listen to something, while I understand, like I'm kind of peripherally observing it at the same time. And what does that data bank do? Well, it becomes like fancy Google. This is what a quad right is, right? It is a fancy Google for you. You stand in front of me and I am able to give you information at your level that is for you, and then bring in my other stuff. And I haven't even talked about 4323 within my design, and mine is unconscious. So I literally say stuff that gets a reaction from people and I have no control over it. And it can be what people would consider socially inappropriate, and yet it's mutative and it's shoots from the hip, and it can be very can really stop people in their tracks and put people in headlights, and it can make me incredibly inappropriate to others, and I just don't really understand why they care so much, because to me it's not personal, right? So, but that quad right quality, I think all quad rights, if you tested them for spectrum, for autism, I think you would find all of them would test somewhere along the spectrum, and you would find that all of them have struggled in their life if they're not born yet. If they've been born before the transition in the next year. And that we've all kind of been sitting here going, why the fuck does all this strategy shit not work for us? And it hurts our brains. It actually hurts to try to make a strategy work for you. And I listened to a manifestor recently talk about, a quad right manifestor talk about, you can be strategic. And of course, a manifestor doesn't want to be told that they shouldn't be or that they can't be. So they all want to make it work for them. Manifestors don't like to be told shit like that. So she was trying to tell us that you can be strategic if you want to be. And it might be exhausting, and it might be. And I'm like, yeah, but the human design game is about living the life in the vehicle and letting the vehicle guide you. Not being the manifestor that has to control everything. And even her assertion is such a control mechanism as a quad right, trying to control the reality that you're in to make it tolerable, manageable, easier. Because being a quad right is incredibly overwhelming, right? You're taking in everything. You're becoming everything. You become the other. It's a wild experience. It's like being a weird reflector that actually absorbs everything at the same time. So imagine being an absorbing projector, an absorbing quad right, being, having first lines in your chart, having it in your profile, and then throw in shoot from the hip 4323 that doesn't really realize how offensive that can be because it's unconscious, and throw in 1949 just for good measure, synthesis and hypersensitivity. And what do you have? You might have a really high functioning, incredibly autistic, and I say that because I think it is a misinterpretation of what autism actually is, autistic person. And there are other things in the chart that I could point to. Like I said, you've got a bunch of other circuitry there that, the 5539 and stuff like that, that's also pulling apart in this mutation. That's also part of a deep part of of what happens as we go right and as the mutation occurs in the circuitry. And the 4730 and 4037, say it around the right way, the channel of the 4037. And all this circuitry is going to relate in the 6, the 59-6, right? This is all really relevant to what autism's, going to be related to as we mutate and as we struggle to contend with that mutation. So I don't think anyone is exempt from the potential of spectrum stuff, but I do think if we analyze the chart closely enough, we would be able to find a lot of alignments in certain circuitry. And certainly the 1949 is a channel that stands out to me when I see people who are spectrum or a little odd or don't quite fit in. And certainly quad rightness, massive. And then people really struggling with frequency. The last guy that I dated has 7 first lines in his chart. And his sensitivity, you could tell that there was a quality of life that was incredibly overwhelming to him. And I think what we see out there as insensitivity is actually an incredible level of overwhelm to the society that we're in. And I think on some level, as 9-centered beings in a world constructed for 7-centered beings, we're all experiencing it, and some people are shutting it down as much as they can so that they can survive. And some of us just aren't always coping. And some of us, if you look at people who are like the non-verbal autists and stuff like that, they just don't even give a fuck what the rest of us are doing. They're like, we're in our own world. We're not even going to deal with any of this. We're just going to do our thing. And we're here to be mathematics. And we're here to be data banks. We're here to be whatever it is we're here to be. So that's my spiel. I've been waiting to put it down. I will keep you updated as I go along my journey. I've been put forward for a referral, which says that my story definitely sounds like one that was worth referring. The woman did say to me, the doctor did say to me, what is concerning is when someone has so much control over their life, at what point does it actually just cause a meltdown because so much energy goes into this? And it's like, well, I have learnt to survive is the truth. By the way, I'm totally unemployable as well. I do not play well in an office. That's something else that's about me that's quite fun to know, is I have become what I have become because there's a lot of things about office culture. I just don't even understand it. I don't understand the term pushback. I'm like, don't you want to know the truth about how inefficient your fucking system is? And as I say that, I'm like, yeah, I don't play well with others in that sense, because I don't understand why you'd want to be inefficient. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Oh, you just want to spend money because we have to honor some bizarre fucking hierarchy because that person's been doing it for longer? I grew up being smarter than most people. And that's true. I've known that for a long time and then forgotten it many times and then been reminded when I hear things like 50% of the population has an IQ under 100. Imagine how that sounds when your IQ is 145 or whatever, Anyway, like, comment, tell me your stories. I bet you there's heaps of you out there that don't realize that it is a part of your mechanical correctness to be spectrum, because I think it is. That is my understanding as I go through this journey. Erin Zen Warrior signing out with the lovely Rufus, who's given up and taken a nap on the seas. Like, follow, do all the things. Tell me your stories in private and public. I want to hear it. If you want to come on a live with me and tell everybody your story, I welcome it. Totally welcome it. And a lot of space held here for you, because what a wild world we live in, right? What a wild life this life is.